Welcome to a special edition of Leaders of Tomorrow Season 10. I'm Ritwika Gupta. The event industry saw a significant change over the last couple of years, and it is still continuing to transform. Globally, different entities, including bigger players and smaller medium-sized companies, are also adjusting to the new reality. What's the story in India? We'll find out today. But first, here's a quick look at the industry. Among the countless difficulties that COVID-19 brought upon businesses, the events industry has been one of the worst affected ones. Venues closed, large gatherings were cancelled, shuttering well-laid plans and jobs. In 2019, India's organized events and activations industry was estimated to be worth 8,300 crore rupees, and in 2021, the industry could only manage a 20% year-on-year revival, clocking a revenue of 3,200 crore rupees. Many organizers shifted to virtual events, with technology proving to be a key driver for businesses in this space. What's the future looking like? Is the events industry on a comeback trail? We'll find out today in a conversation with Roshan Abbas, Managing Director, Geometry Encompass, Founder, Kommuneity India, and President, Event and Entertainment Management Association. Thank you so much, Roshan, for joining us today.
Not at all. It's a pleasure.
So, the last couple of years has really turned the event industry on its head, due to the pandemic. But then I also believe that it's during these trying times that we get extraordinary solutions. So I want to first begin by really asking you to tell us, what's the state like today, the state of the event industry? Are we on a recovery route, or is it still going to take us a while before we get back to how things were pre-pandemic?
So I definitely think we're on the road to recovery. Many people discovered new ways of doing things during the pandemic. Many agencies went digital. Today you'll find full digital studios that are delivering online events. Hybrid events started as well. But yes, the live event business did shrink, almost to the extent of about 50% is what it came down to. Many people lost their employment. But what we're noticing right now is that both brands as well as consumers, the sentiment is very high. Anything that you do gets full up in no time. You open a ticketed event, it gets full within 4 hours. Wherever you're opening up ticketing, etc. So I definitely think that there is a resurgent wave, but there's a scare that's happened. So, so suddenly you hear about a monkeypox and everyone starts cancelling events. You hear about the numbers of COVID cases rising and again people start cancelling. So there's a fear that's set in to a certain degree. Many of us believe that over a period of time, while the number of people at an event may shrink, the value of the ticket will go up. So people will try to find that compensation, but it's been a tough couple of years.
I want to talk about the impact the pandemic had, the lockdown also had on not just your bigger players, but also on the smaller, medium-sized event companies, who I believe had to also face the maximum brunt. So if you could actually just tell us what sort of challenges they faced, and are they still facing the same challenges today, or is it a bit better?
So surprisingly, what happened was that the larger agencies were built for big. And the minute the big stopped happening, all those agencies faced the biggest challenges. So some of them obviously had deep pockets, so they were able to survive for a period of time. But then after a little while, you couldn't maintain a team size of 100, 200, 500 people, which large agencies used to have, whether it's a Wizcraft or used to be a Fountainhead or a 70 or Encompass or any of the others. Now, with that happening, there were a few challenges, in terms of people losing jobs. And there was a lot of redundancy. Lots of people, were put on furlough and then had to move on. Senior management teams took a lot of a pay cut in many agencies. Smaller agencies, actually, the ones that were under 10 people, 15 to 20 people, were the right size. So many of them, I think, sat together as teams and said, we've got to go through these challenging times. Even they had pay cuts, but they were a lot more resilient. The mid-size agencies, which would have been 50 to 100 people, also reduced their staff. And I think all of us have really started questioning how many people do you actually need in a team. Now, if you're only an event execution agency, maybe you can survive with a core team of 10 to 12 people and then hire freelancers. But full service agencies like ourselves, who have to do everything from the direct mailer to the response, to the audio visuals, to the content, to the live event, to facilitation and running and operations, we still find that there is a challenge in terms of what is the correct size. So smaller agencies, I actually feel, were a lot smaller boats survived this better. Many of the larger players had bigger challenges.
So how has your strategy changed at Encompass, from pre-pandemic to pandemic, and now, if I may say, post-pandemic? I'm sure your strategy would have evolved over time, and if you could, share a few examples of the events, activations, and experiences that you have created, and how that has sort of, seen a shift.
Yeah, so you see, there were three things we noticed. At the beginning of the pandemic, the first thing was that, we all hope against hope to say this will go away in 3 months. And anybody is able to survive 3 to 6 months if they are well planned. I think it was after 3 months that we realized that this is here to stay, and we had to really look at a shift of strategy. The first message we put out to our people was the fact of saying that, listen, understand how to do a digital event. Everybody, even outside, who used to look at Zoom and other things as only mediums of communication. We actually worked together with a lot of creative agencies to do some really unique things. So we created a music anthem online to tell people, you can do this. We did an online play in association with a bunch of very good actors and Commune, where we said you can do a play online. We did a classical music concert. So these were confidence building measures to say, don't worry, you can still engage your audience. Of course, these events were coming at 1/10, or in some cases 1/50th the price of a regular event. So how do you make your people survive became the second challenge. At which point, as I said, these cuts, etc., had to be looked at. We actually advised a lot of our people, as I said, to try and reskill yourself, try to understand what else you can do. Today, you could see the same amount of spend that used to happen on a physical event happening on a large format digital event. Because people have now realized that if you could earlier get 500 people into a conference, you can get 50,000 people into a conference globally. There is no limit of geography, there's no limit. There are time zones in which you know that you can get at least 50 countries to attend at the same time. So this has become a big plus point, which we are now exploiting at some level. But only companies that understood content could do this.
Right. You mentioned virtual events, those are great, but people did miss, going to live events as
Absolutely.
well. Do you think the hybrid, sort of phygital, which you had mentioned the last time, is that something you see as sustainable in the industry?
So the phygital, frankly, I believe is really the future if done right. Many people don't believe in it because they still don't understand broadcast. If this team, which is shooting us right now, was integrated into a great live event setup, you would end up seeing the best thing. So see, I often tell people, saying, what is the IPL? The IPL is a phygital event. The physical match is happening in a stadium. There's a broadcast studio from which the virtual broadcast is taking place. And you're integrating everything from digital graphics to viewers' comments to everything else. Now, these are the elements that if brought together, you can have an absolutely brilliant phygital hybrid event.
Picking up from what you said, you mentioned content a number of times. The role of the event organizer, manager today, is it right to say that they are now content creators?
A very, very fair point to say. I often turn and say that people need to understand that they are content creators. At the same time, they have to have a large understanding of digital engagement. Because the thing that you went to an event for, what's the difference between watching a show on television and watching a show when it's happening live? It's the live engagement. It's when the MC comes up and talks to you. It's when the MD of a company turns and asks the sales force to say something and they respond. It's when at a concert the DJ says, raise your hands, and things happen and you witness it simultaneously. Now, all of these are engagements that happen physically. What's their virtual connect is what you need to understand. So we are content creators, but I think we are more about being interactive content creators.
Right. At this point, I want to talk about Commune India. I have been following you and through the pandemic, and I know the kind of experiences and gigs that you have been putting up, but I want to hear from you. How has the pandemic impacted the performing arts space? Because not much has been talked about that, the artists and the people who actually rely on stage events and performing arts in general, and what sort of innovations did you take to survive?
So, Commune sits at this place where we really believe in taking young amateur artists and giving them a platform to do unique things, whether it's in spoken word, whether it's in poetry, whether it's in music. Now, with all of these things happening, what we realized was, firstly, the barrier between an audience and a performer broke, right? You were doing concerts on Instagram, you were doing things on Snapchat, you were doing things on Facebook Live, YouTube Live. This has now created an intimate connection between artists and audiences. So do you really require a big platform anymore? Or can you just do a one-to-one? Is the first thing that happened. Artists realize that if you build your own communities and your own tribe, you can monetize this. When everybody talks of the creator economy, the biggest shift was this. Today, if somebody values your view and you started a newsletter, you could do a paid newsletter and 1,000 people paying you 1,000 rupees a year, and voila, you're suddenly sitting on 10 lakhs worth of business from a newsletter, right? If you do a private concert and you say, I've got a tipping jar, which is an online thing which you can do, people can go and actually pay you money virtually. And this innovation of removing the middleman, as I say, or removing the layer of the platform is something that has been a big movement that's happened.
It's time now for a quick break. We'll be back shortly. Stay tuned. Welcome back. You're watching Leaders of Tomorrow Season 10, and I'm in conversation with Roshan Abbas. Listen in. Roshan, you're also the president of the Event and Entertainment Management Association. So tell us what sort of initiatives that you guys are taking to, help businesses in this segment.
So what happened was that when we took over 2 years ago, our first mission was to get events to open. EMA and the event management fraternity, I believe, is the invisible force that needed to be made visible to people. So we'd made a whole committee which was going to engage with the government sector. In every state, we started reaching out to the government departments, telling them what our strength was. I mean, for example, if you look at the organized and unorganized sector, we employ 1 crore people. Now, nobody believes that. Everybody's like, oh my God, that's a figment of your imagination. But we actually put down numbers to say, this is the way it's broken down. This business, while largely the unorganized sector, is almost 5 lakh crores if you look at hospitality, tourism, all of these things put together. It's a big ecosystem. We kept knocking on various doors. Tourism Ministry, who really were kind to us and did have a word. Finance Ministry, who were solving for many other things. So I would not point a finger and say they were not able to help us. But finally, 3 months ago, the INB Ministry and Mr. Apurv Chandra, who's the Secretary of INB, actually gave us a very patient hearing. And his first question was, okay, why would you be part of the media and entertainment sector? And I said, all events generate content, and that content becomes stuff that people consume. When the second wave hit, we actually turned and said that event managers are crisis managers as well. And at that point in time, I was very, very proud of our event industry, who set up everything from oxygen helplines, carrying people, providing them hospital beds, shelter, managing 2 full COVID facilities in Delhi, for which we were hailed by the Delhi government. And all of these initiatives suddenly made the event manager visible.
Nice. What, according to you, are some of the other initiatives, which you think businesses should undertake, like event companies should undertake, to sort of, make their process a little more hassle-free? Like, what advice would you give them, in fact, in this scenario? Should they just focus on smaller events, or maybe just virtual, or, depending on the size of the company?
My advice to all event managers is, honestly, just try to up the ante of creativity. For too long, we were comfortable doing the things we were used to doing, right? You did corporate events, you did corporate events. You did opening ceremonies, award nights, you did just that. This last 2 years has been a chief transformation officer. It's come to your business and said, can you think afresh? The fact that, as people are going along now, I feel that the large ticketed events are going to be big. Justin Bieber's been announced for October in New Delhi. They're saying they would expect up to 80,000 people. Sunburn has already given out its dates. So the large format, big event is going to happen. Anybody who's pursuing that definitely needs to do that, because the young millennial and Gen Z audiences pay through their wallet for experiences. They will not buy a house. They will not buy a car, but they will buy experiences. To brands, I would say you really need to be a little more generous with your packages, because people have got too used to the procurement divisions deciding the creativity of who will execute things for you. And I always say, you pay peanuts, you get monkeys. So how will you end up getting the best if you're not willing to pay? And anybody who believes that this industry can be cut down to running it on a 2 to 8 to 10% kind of margin, that's not how this business runs. So I think you need to move from a percentage to giving people a fee that is legitimate to their time and their involvement, and maybe then take on the procurement of all the goods yourself directly. But don't try to make a hero of the event manager so they'll take every bullet for you. And then you just stand over their grave and cry 2 tears and say that was a good person. I mean, support them. Really, this industry needs support from brands, support from the government, which is really, really needed.
Nice. What are some of the trends that you are excited about in this segment, in the next couple of years? You did mention a lot of the trends just now, but
so see, I think India is very tier 2, tier 3. India is showing its identity and is vociferous about its identity. So Bharat-focused events will be great. Don't celebrate cultures of outside. There's so much to celebrate here. So you will see food festivals, you will see sports. Look at the number of sporting personalities we have created over the last 2 years. Look at the number of biopics you see on screen. Why is this happening? India is looking for new young idols. So find new young idols and celebrate them, because sports events are going to be a big area of focus. Weddings, as I said, will never slow down. There will be all forms of weddings. So now there are metaverse weddings that have started as well. I don't know what fun they are, but people have started doing them. The big international wedding circuit is a very, very big market that's happening. The concert market, as I said, is really big. The corporate event market is the challenge right now, because brands are still a little scared about, if something goes wrong, will they be blamed? Right? So I've seen a lot of brands who are turning, I've already heard of people, as I said, started to cancel things because, there is this monkeypox, etc., because there's suddenly so much of a scare. So I think some amount of brands have to be a little more confident, but I'm seeing that sector remain possibly the way it is. But all these other sectors that I mentioned, gaming is going to be a big area of focus for young people. Therefore, gaming arenas, gaming tournaments, there will be a lot of. Music and comedy are the 2 other focus areas for young audiences today. Everybody consumes everyone from a Kapil Sharma to a Zakir Khan to a Veer Das to everybody else in this space. So I do think there's a lot that's happening.
Nice. And finally, your closing remarks. What do you think is the road ahead for live events, in this year coming ahead?
This year, as long as there is no new wave, the minute I hear that word, I'm like, oh God, not again. But if nothing happens, this is going to be a double-digit growth year for us. In fact, it's already double-digit growth for people. There was a beautiful thing that was said at one of our seminars where someone said, to whatever you did earlier, add a 0. Now, if that can be the scale of ambition, which means multiplying what you did by 10 times, that's the scale of ambition. And if you just give it the right amount of fuel and fire, I think we're going to skyrocket.
That was insightful, Roshan. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
And now it's time to take a quick look at our CXO Diary.
If you're going through hell, keep going. Generosity, learning, and building the next generation. Morning, because I get quiet time to browse through things, which I do for 2 hours. The book that I'm currently reading is The Psychology of Money. I read about 8 books at the same time, so I'm sorry about just telling you one. I'm a nitpicker. I'm too critical, because the Virgo in me doesn't die, and I keep nitpicking on things. The fact that I still believe there is so much to do and a legacy to leave behind. Strangely, Barack Obama, someone I've always admired because of his communication skills, because of his warmth. I'm more of a Twitter junkie for information. I go to Instagram when my eyes are looking for something pleasant to see, so I see lots of nice fashion and food pictures, etc. And yeah. Money means nothing to me, frankly. Nothing at all. The only possible thing that it gives me is the luxury. I think time is a luxury actually, not money. Coming up with new ideas. I'm always coming up with new ideas.
With that, it's a wrap on this edition of Leaders of Tomorrow Season 10. We hope you enjoyed the conversation. Thank you and good night.